Welcome to the Old Time Gospel Radio broadcast with Pastor Chris Melser of Gilead Baptist Church. Grab your pen and your King James Bible and join us as we study the Word of God.
Welcome back to our study of Obadiah. Today we want to pick up there in verse number 3 and verse number 4. Hopefully we're going to get 4 today in this recording. But anyway, let's just kind of go back and pick up and read verses 2, 3, and 4. If you've got your King James Bible, I would encourage you to open it and follow along with us. Verse number 2 says, "Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, and thou art greatly despised. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, and thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord." Now, of course, here we talked about, we talked about last time, we see the despisement of Edom in verse number 2. Today we're going to pick up here with the deceivedness of Edom in verse number 3. And in this verse, we'll read it one more time. It says, "The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, and thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground?" Now here we see, even God himself calls them out and says that they're deceived in their heart because of the pride of life. And for many Christians today, we know what the Bible has to say about pride. We find that over in Proverbs, verse number 16, or chapter 16, verse 18. It says, "Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." That verse alone right there in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 18, that verse alone sums up Edom's whole existence. Pride. Pride is a very dangerous attribute or characteristic for a Christian. It's not only just for the Christian, but just for anyone, for just a normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill person. Pride is dangerous for the pastor. Pride is dangerous for the church. Pride is dangerous for anybody and everybody that comes and goes. Pride is nothing to be celebrated. Pride is nothing to be glamorized. Pride always brings about destruction. It doesn't matter what the world tries to tell us. It doesn't matter how the world tries to paint the thought of pride to us. It will always bring about destruction of some similitude. If we are not careful, and that, when I'm saying we, I'm talking about those of us that are saved. If we are not careful, pride can and will deceive us into thinking that we are more than what we are. And a lot of times for young Christians, that's a hard lesson to learn. I can speak from a little bit of experience in that. I was saved as a 7-8-year-old boy, and I've kind of already told you a little bit about it. But I fell for a lie of some people that I think now, at least one of them is a Christian. I think they're saved. The other one I'm not so sure about, but I've lost contact with really both of them now. But they told me a story, told me that I could, even though I was saved, I could still do this, that, and the other. All I had to do is ask for forgiveness, and I asked my parents about that, and they said, "Yeah, that's kind of how the Christian life is. I mean, you strive not to, but there's going to be times to where something's going to come up in our life, and we're going to fall short of the glory of God. I mean, that's just who we are. That's just this Adamic nature that we live in, the flesh that we live in, and the desires and the pulls of the flesh that we live in on a daily basis. That's going to be one of those things that happen. And I fell out. I for the next several years, and even all the way up to today. If I'm not careful, if I'm not vigilant, I'll get it out in a minute, I promise. If I'm not vigilant in where I'm at, paying attention to where I'm at, the people I'm around, and just how things can kind of come up. If I'm not vigilant enough in my trying to live a Christian life, if I'm at a weak spot in my life, I still sin even today. I mean, and here I am. I'm trying to do this little Bible study here, and we've already done one, and now I'm trying to go through this book of Obadiah, and I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect in any sense, and I'll be right up front and honest and tell you that. I still fall short of the glory of God. But it's what we do with that pride and that stuff that kind of comes up in our life. And you get to the point to where if we're not careful, we'll get to the point to where we can say, well, we can handle this, we can handle that, we can manage this, and that's not what we're called to do. But we can get to the point to where as a young Christian, once we're saved, we'll start to, we get that fever of learning about God, and we get in here, and then if we're not careful, pride will swell up in our hearts to the point to where we think we can do something better than somebody else, and then we'll sit back and sulk because nobody's asking us to do this, that, or the other. If you're a singer, it's real easy when it comes to singing. If the singer's not careful in keeping themselves right, they'll think that they can do a better job than so and so over here, and so and so's plugged into the glory of God, and you might be able to sing 10 times better than him, but he's got a hold of God, and you've got a hold of pride, and you get up and put on a performance when they're getting up and testifying, and the power of God falls on them. I can't tell you the stories I've heard of preachers talking about their times in revivals where they'll have the big singing group come in, and they're up there and they're doing everything they know to do to get a response out of people, because that's what they've been taught. That's who they are. And when people don't respond to that, they start trying to work it harder and harder and harder, and to the point to where they kill the service, and it's deader than 4:00. And then some little old lady that can't carry a tune in a bucket will get up and just start to sing, and then the power of God falls in that place because she's doing it from the right spirit. They're getting up and doing it because of a performance. She's getting up doing it because she has a heart for God, and she loves God, and God falls down and blesses that lady because of what she's doing and getting up. And even though people may look down their sanctimonious nose at her because she can't carry a tune in a bucket as good as these boys over here, but she's got the power of God on her life, and that's what we're missing today a lot. And I know I keep harping on this, but that is exactly what we're missing today in churches today, is that we have people performing, but we don't have any people that is seeking the power of God in their life and doing what God has called them to do, and that is pride. Pride will cause that. I've been there. I've been the one sitting out there thinking, well, if they just give me a chance, by golly, I'd show them. And there's a reason I ain't been given that chance, because of the pride that was in my heart at that time. And that's very dangerous for a young Christian, and I hope that helps somebody. But I would even go as far as this to say that it's one of the devil's greatest tricks to lead Christians astray, is to get us to let them get a little bit of experience, to get a little bit of momentum going in their direction, and everything else. God's starting to move and work, and then the devil will come in and try to take that and then spur it off somewhere else in another direction. That's easily done. It was instrumental in deceiving Eve in the Garden of Eden. It was the greatest temptation used in Christ's life. Near the end of the 40 days of fasting, when the devil comes in, what did he do? He came in. Now, Christ is in the physical body. Jesus Christ had just spent 40 days without food and water out in the wilderness. to be tempted and tried by the devil, to prove that he was in fact the Son of God, and he passed with flying colors. But the things that the devil used against him was the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And he uses those same three. He still has the same three things that he comes at you and I with today. And that's what he had. He had Edom so eat up with pride, and the pride they had in their life, and what they were able to do without God. And a little brother's over here, and he's struggling and doing this and doing that, and everybody's rising up against him and everything else, and they'll get great and then small, and Edom's just sitting over here. They're just full of pride, and they're just, God ain't moving, and God ain't working, God ain't doing anything with them, and everything else, and they've got it figured out, and they see what's going on over here, and the pride of their life is that they're able to do things that their little brother who's trusting in some God out here, and he sees the travail that they're going through and the things that God is bringing them in and out and doing this and doing that with, and they're sitting over here. They've got everything they need. They don't need God. They're so far away from God. If God was to walk up and introduce himself, they wouldn't even know who he was. That's the type of, that's what pride can do for a Christian. That's what pride can do for a church. That's what pride can do for a nation and everything else. And that pride is very, very dangerous, and that's something that we have to do. But when and like I said, Christ was tempted of those things and everything else, and we come down and we see the fact that here he is. He's, I'm getting off my notes here, and I'm trying not to, but man, I just can't help it. Here we go. Well, here we see we got, like I said, we've got Edom over here. They don't have a desire one for God. Now you got to understand, Edom was from the same stock as Israel was. Esau, the father of Edom, was the older brother of Jacob, the father of the nation of Israel. We're not talking about, some heathen out there. We're talking about the same flesh and blood of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Esau was there. But yet he had no desire and no use for God, because he could do things on his own, and he chose that life. He chose to do those things. And here we see, God, even though Israel was up and down, like a worm in a yo-yo, up and down in their walk and in their relationship with God, Edom stayed the same over here. They weren't really blessed like Israel was. They weren't blessed like all the other heathen nations around them. They were just kind of over here. They had their little niche, and that's what they used to exist, and they were happy just being right over here and being left alone and everything else, and had no desire for God because of the pride that they had in their life. And it caused God to hate them. It caused God to bring about their inevitable demise. With that being said, I do want to speed up here and talk about something that still fascinates a lot of us today, that's living today, and this is going all the way back to the Titanic. At the time, just to kind of give us a little background here, at the time, the Titanic was a modern feat of engineering. When you go back and you look, and of course I live in East Tennessee here, and just about an hour away in Sevierville, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, is a museum dedicated to the Titanic. One of, I think, 2 or 3 that's in the country. And I've been to that thing, and I've seen all of the grandeur of the things that they put into that ship, and everything, and you if you study down through that and you see what happened, you see the person who designed the ship. There was a sister ship called the Olympic to the Titanic, but they pulled the Olympic was the older sister to the Titanic, and they pulled a captain. The captain of the Olympic, they pulled his guy off. His name was Edward John Smith. Captain Edward John Smith. They pulled him off the Olympic and put him on the Titanic. And this was some of the last words that he was ever really famous for saying. Even God himself couldn't sink this ship. It was less than 2 weeks, well, about a week later, the ship winds up on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean floor, where it's been for, 100 years nearly. The pride that they put into that boat and into that ship, they overlooked a lot of things that they should have done differently. They overlooked a lot of safety features that they could have put in, but in their arroganceness, in thinking they had the world by the tail and that this boat was unsinkable, God sank that ship. A lot of people lost their life because of the arrogance of some people in their design, in the flaws of their design. Mankind is completely and totally flawed. It doesn't matter. You can build the most beautiful house out there. You can get the greatest of engineers to come in and engineer and draw out the most beautiful house with everything done just so, and then you bring man in and you start putting that house together and everything else, and it ain't going to be long. There's going to be a crack show up here. There's going to be a crack show up over here. There's going to be something happen, because anything man has their hand in is flawed. It will not withstand the test of time. It will not hold up. I seen on a Facebook reel a little while ago, and I know I'm going to wind up dating this, but that's fine. But the Hurricane Helen that just came ashore here in September, there was some people standing out with the waves coming in before I'm assuming it was before, it might have been after, I don't know, but there's a bunch of people kind of standing off to the side on the shoreline, and there's some houses that was built out, and they're standing on stilts and everything else, and this big beautiful house that's standing up on top of these stilts that's out in the ocean or out close to it, but the storm swell come up. The way the waves just continually beat on that house, beat on them stilts, beat on them stilts, and beat on them stilts to the point to where they could no longer take it, and the house fell. Friend, that's exactly what you and I are dealing with. If we're not careful, the pride of life will continue to come in, and that sin will continue to come in and beat and beat and beat and beat against us to the point to where that we just think that we can handle everything on our own, and that we go out on our own and we have no use for God. And here in this passage of scripture where he says, even as the eagle, is it the eagle? Let me see. We do know the eagle builds their nest in high places and different things like that. I'm pretty sure that's kind of what he's referencing here. But anyway, we're going to say they build they're dwelling in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground. Friend, when we get to that point, God will show us he can do it. The people that built the Titanic, White Star, when they built the Titanic, they thought they had built the most amazing engineering feat of that time, and they did. But God took that ship down. He took the Olympic down. There was 3 of them. I can't remember what the other one's name was, and it eventually sank too. the company went out of business and everything else. But anytime you get to the point in your life where you think you have it all figured out and that you have no need for God, that sin that's just continually coming in and beating against the stilts, it will be our undoing, and God will let it fall. God will bring us down. He'll either do it on the way He wants to, or He'll allow the situation that we put ourselves in to take us down. Either way, God did not stop us. God allowed the things to happen in our life, and He will bring things against us in our life, just like He did Edom. He brought in outside interference to come in and take this nation down, and to ultimately destroy them. And friend, I mean, that's dangerous ground. Like I said, when it comes to pride of life, and the things of that, it is you are on dangerous ground when you allow pride to swell up into your heart and into your life to the point to where that you no longer need God. You don't see the need for God in your life. You will wind up falling if you're not careful. Well, we were hoping to get through verse number 4 today, but we didn't. So come back and be with us again as we jump down into verse number 4, and we'll see the downfall of Edom at that time. Thank you.
Thank you again for joining the Old Time Radio broadcast. You can join us for services at 2504 Shipe Road, Knoxville, Tennessee 37924. More information can be found at gileadbaptistchurch.org. Follow us on Facebook. And most importantly, if you don't know what Jesus Christ did, not just in our world history, but also for you personally, please use our website to contact us, and a member of our outreach team will be in touch with you shortly. Thank you, and have a good day.